Today, UFO sightings are more common than ever. It's easy to assume that these flying saucers only started appearing on our planet fairly recently, perhaps within the past 100 years or so. UFO skeptics often point out that we only started spotting these flying objects after we were able to mentally conceptualize them with our science fiction books and movies. In other words, we started imagining UFOs, and then started seeing them. This, the skeptics argue, is evidence that these alien spaceships only exist in our minds. Putting aside the fact that the US military captures these things on camera all the time, there's another crucial type of evidence that supports the validity of UFOs: the historical record. That's right, UFOs might not be as recent as many people think. In fact, there is compelling evidence to suggest that people have been seeing strange lights and all kinds of oddities in the sky throughout ancient times. But were these ancient people really seeing UFOs? Let's find out.
There's 51 million people entering another
surveillance camera capturing the
unidentified flying saucer.
lockdowns and mass testing.
Today, that the world is going to end.
According to a papyrus that was hastily copied by Boris de Rakovits and never seen again, the ancient Egyptians witnessed a UFO during the reign of Pharaoh THUTMOSE III, about 3,500 years ago. Apparently, a circle of fire showed up in the sky with a diameter of approximately 15 feet. This thing was spitting fumes out of what ancient Egyptians described as its mouth, although it could have been some kind of engine. According to the translation, these fumes had a foul odor, possibly suggesting some kind of chemical propulsion system. After the first UFO appeared, many others joined it. Eventually, there was an entire fleet of these circular objects in the sky. As the Egyptians looked out in utter confusion, the objects suddenly rose together and zoomed away into the southern horizon. The ancient priests of that time were so disturbed that they burned incense and conducted purifying rituals for days. Some say that the ancient Egyptians were simply seeing a meteor shower, but this doesn't really make sense. After all, this society was extremely knowledgeable when it came to astronomy, and they would have been able to tell the difference between meteors and UFOs. A more valid criticism of this story is its source, which has never been verified. Like the Egyptians, the Romans were meticulous record keepers, and they spoke of UFOs on multiple occasions. According to Livy, the Second Punic Wars were interrupted briefly by phantom ships gleaming in the sky, all around the ancient city of Rome. No one could really figure out what they were, and they made a reappearance 1 year later. For the second appearance, Livy provided a more detailed description and compared them to flying round shields. Another fleet of UFOs was then spotted near the city of Lavinium in around 173 BCE. Livy remains one of the most reliable historians of that era. However, it should be noted that he didn't actually witness the UFOs firsthand, as he wrote about these events 150 years after they took place. About 100 years after the phantom ships over Rome, more UFOs were spotted in the empire. Pliny the Elder wrote about a spark that fell from the heavens in 76 BCE. This spark became bigger and bigger until it appeared to be the same size as the moon. Next, the object abruptly reversed course, flying back up into the upper atmosphere before becoming extremely bright and disappearing altogether. Could this have been some kind of warp drive? Just 2 years after this incident, the Romans were marching on the kingdom of Pontus, and battle was about to commence. But out of nowhere, a massive object flew between the two armies. It was described as roughly the shape of a giant wine jar. and it had a metallic, silver color, described by Plutarch. This UFO sighting is unique because thousands of soldiers witnessed it. In fact, the incident was so shocking that both armies decided to call off the battle. Some claim that this was simply a meteor, but that explanation doesn't quite add up. Experts point out that meteors appear as fiery objects in the sky, while Plutarch's flying wine jar was a cool, metallic silver. The Romans were also very astute astronomers, so they would have been able to identify a meteor when they saw one. This seems to have been something completely different. Almost 100 years later, the Romans were marching on Jerusalem. Historian Titus Flavius Josephus wrote extensively on this conflict, and he claims that a curious thing happened at the beginning of the hostilities. According to his account, soldiers witnessed chariots in the sky that baffled everyone present. Josephus admits that this would probably be dismissed as some kind of vision or hallucination in later times, but he insisted that these sky chariots were real. The last notable report from Roman times was recorded by historian Cassius Dio, and it occurred in 192 AD. While Cassius Dio didn't actually see a UFO, he did collect a strange jelly-like substance known in the paranormal community as angel hair. This sticky, fibrous material has been linked with UFOs and the manifestation of the Virgin Mary. According to paranormal researchers, the substance is a byproduct of electromagnetic fields caused by UFOs. Cassius Dio describes this substance as a fine, silvery rain falling from the sky. The historian studied the material and tried to preserve it by plating it into bronze coins. However, the angel hair apparently disappeared within 3 days. For the last ancient account of UFOs, let's travel to the 6th century in Ireland, known as the airship of CLONMACNOISE. This phenomenon was mentioned by multiple sources throughout the 740s, and all of these accounts described some kind of vessel flying through the sky. These reports were very brief with few details, but the fact that 4 different Irish annals all mention this strange UFO definitely makes the incident more believable, even if the reports are extremely brief and with few details. It's important to remember that UFO simply means unidentified flying object. These people may have seen strange, unexplainable things in the sky, but that doesn't necessarily mean they were being visited by aliens. It's also interesting to note that unlike modern people, these ancient observers had no concept of modern technology. Unlike us, they didn't have science fiction stories of flying saucers, aliens, and anti-gravity technology. Those ideas would have been totally foreign. So when they looked up at the night sky, these ancient people described UFOs in ways that made sense to them. This is why Livy describes UFOs as round shields, why Josephus calls them flying chariots, and why Plutarch speaks of silvery wine jars. They couldn't conceptualize what they were seeing, and so their minds simply reverted to familiar reference points. In any case, it seems obvious that ancient people have been witnessing strange things in the skies for thousands of years. Perhaps, thousands of years from now, people will view our modern UFOs in the same way. Perhaps the questions raised by these objects will never truly be answered.